In this video, we're gonna dive deeper into Optimus. We're gonna take a look at the mathematics behind this one. We're gonna try and figure out when exactly is it going to become deflationary. So stay tuned and enjoy the video. Hey, what's going on, guys? It's Eric here and welcome back to the channel. I hope you guys are having a great day and are doing well. First, few disclaimers. I'm not bashing Optimus by any means. I don't want people going into the comments saying, oh, well, you don't have any idea what you're talking about. I did my research. I'm trying to understand it. So please let me know if I am completely off here in the comment section below. Secondly, I am invested in this one. I put in about $200 a few days ago and it's already worth $211. So I am invested in it and I've only put money that I was okay losing in this protocol, and that's exactly what I would recommend you guys doing. Don't go ahead and put all of your money in this because DeFi, there's always risks and we don't know what's going to happen tomorrow. So obviously only invest money you can lose. So now with that out of the way, I want to go into Optimus and try and understand exactly how it is going to become deflationary with the current mechanism that Optimus offers. So if we take a look at the white paper, the first thing we need to understand is that the fair launch actually happened. It's been about a month now, about 28 days or so, but they started off with 21 million tokens. Okay, so keep that number in mind. And as we all know, we're all getting 1% daily rewards distributed in OPT2 token, so their native token that's being distributed every single day, 1% to everyone. Now, of course, there is a burn, and this is how they plan on becoming deflationary. They do say here that every day the OPT2 token rebases, increasing the total supply of tokens by exactly 1%. After every rebase, Optimus burns 1% of the OPT2 tokens held in liquidity. Now, this is a deflationary mechanism put in place to counteract, obviously, the inflation of being a rebase token that's paying out 1% daily. But here we have to understand, because I've seen a lot of people not necessarily understand this, a liquidity pool combines two tokens together. So in this case, we have the OPT2 token and we have half of that composing the liquidity pool with the other half being USDT, because as we know now, they now move to a pair between OPT2 and USDT. It's no longer paired with Matic. So if we take a look at Dex Screener here, we put the OPT2 contract in here. This is exactly what is in the liquidity right now. We have 906,000 OPT2 tokens and about $1.3 million in USDT. That is a combination of about 2.6 million, which is what we see in this liquidity here. But what is being burnt on a daily basis is actually 1% of this amount here. So 1% of the OPT2 tokens that are found inside of the liquidity pool. Now, of course, because this is a liquidity pool, it is going to vary every time some people buy or sell this token, because if people are buying the OPT2 token, what that means is that it's going to increase the USDT side of things in that liquidity pool, because people are putting USDT to buy OPT2, and vice versa. If people are selling OPT2, well, then they're putting those tokens back into the liquidity pool and taking out the USDT. So now that we understand that there is a 1% daily inflation rate, that's what's basically paying you out on a day-to-day basis. We understand that, and we also understand the burn mechanism. Now, if we take a look at Polygon Scan, the first thing we need to understand is, yes, the protocol's been out for roughly 1 month now, and we can take a look at the total supply of these tokens. So on Polygon Scan, we have 27.7 million tokens, and as you remember, there was 21 million token to start. So that's about 6.7 million tokens that have been created or printed over the last last month, and that's basically the rewards that people are getting. Now, I know people are going to say, well, that's the total supply. It's not necessarily the circulating supply. I completely understand that. If we take a look at some of these wallets down here, some of these are the bots that are using these funds to trade in order to make revenue for the protocol. I completely understand that. And just to be on the conservative side of things, let's assume that about 4 million of these tokens are actually held in the bot wallets that they use in order to make profits and they use to trade their native token. We're going to say that 4 million tokens are actually in those wallets. We're kind of going to reduce that total supply to 23.7 million. And we're also going to remove the amount that has been burned so far. And then we're going to go ahead and do some calculations with those numbers. Now, as we can see, there was just a rebase that happened, and if I go and refresh the Polygon scan, we're going to see a new total supply, as well as we're also going to see the new tokens that were burnt. So let me go ahead and refresh this, keep this number in mind, and if we go and refresh this, we can see that about 300,000 tokens were added to the total supply. And if we take a look at the burn wallet, which is down here, we have 449,000 tokens. And just before the update, it was actually at 444. So there's only been about 5,000 tokens burnt, which I'm not quite sure why, because as we took a look, there is about 906,000 tokens, and 1% of that would be about 9,000 tokens, but it seems that only half of these tokens got burnt in this rebase. So I'm not exactly sure what is going on. If someone wants to enlighten me, please let me know. But again, it should be 1% of whatever amount of OPT2 tokens are found inside of that liquidity pool. Now, something else that has been happening towards the burn, it hasn't actually happened every single day. We can see that even on Dune Analytics, we have it stopping around the 21st of September, which is a few days ago. And as we can see, only a handful of tokens have been burnt since then. Now we just got 5,000 more tokens burnt, but again, it doesn't account for that 1% in the LP. So I'm still confused as to what's happening with the burn. So now if we go ahead and we do some math and we try to understand when is this going to become deflationary with the current mechanisms they have in place, as we remember, we had 21 million tokens as a starting supply. With the new current supply, with the inflation over the last few weeks, we now have 27.7 million tokens. Of course, there was just a rebase. We're not going to take into account the new tokens that were just printed. We're just going to go with what I had before. And as we also know, the previous burn before that rebase was 444,000 tokens. And like I said, we're going to assume that about 4 million tokens of that current supply are held for the bot purposes. So now we have to do two things. We have to kind of assume two things here. The first thing is the liquidity pool. And of course, we know that they have different bots trying to trade on the side and then increase the liquidity pool with the revenues from those bots. That's the whole purpose, to grow the liquidity pool and to finally have a big enough liquidity pool that the 1% burn of the OPT2 token is going to be higher than the 1% inflation that's happening daily. So that's the whole goal, and that's how they plan on becoming deflationary. So if you are still following up to this point, pat yourself on the back, because you are definitely in it to try and understand it with me. So congrats to you. But if we continue on with this analysis, as we see the liquidity pool token, it was about 900,000 tokens of OP2 in the liquidity pool, and that burns 1% on a daily basis. Now, I kind of just did a random function. Again, this is going to vary, and it's also going to be dependent on the revenues of those bots. So if we just take a look at what I did for this analysis, I'm going to assume that the liquidity pool tokens of OPT2 is going to increase by 2.5% on a daily basis. I took a random number. It could be more, it could be less, and it also depends on the revenues of the bots, like I said a million times so far. So doing that, we can see that the burn is going to increase, of course, if it works properly, because as we can see over the last few days, it hasn't worked properly. But going down to day 60, which is 2 months in, if we have about 4 million tokens of OPT2 in the liquidity pool, that would be about a 40,000 token burn on a daily basis. And of course, it's going to continue as the liquidity keeps growing. So that was assumption number 1. Now, if we move on to assumption number 2 and we take a look at the current supply, that was basically me taking that current supply minus the burn and minus the amount of tokens we are allocating to the bots. So that gives us with about 23 million tokens. And as we know, this is going to inflate on a 1% every single day. So we can see the current inflation, it's being added every single day. And of course, that's adding to the current supply, which is just a compounding effect of that 1%. So it's not just a linear interpolation here, it's actually going to get quite exponentially, quite fast. At day 60, we would have a supply of about 42 million tokens. So in about 2 months, we have doubled that supply that we basically have right now. Now, going back here, the current burn, we are taking the burn that we currently have and we are deducting the daily percent that it would burn based on my assumption of that liquidity pool and how it would grow by 2.5%. So if we just take a look at this equation, of course, we have the current burn plus the new burn, that would give us the current burn for that day. And with that, we can now calculate our circulating supply. And I've realized I've taken the burn out twice of this current supply here, but again, it doesn't really matter for this analysis. So as we can see, this is basically what is happening. So we have a burn that is happening on a daily basis, dependent on the LP, and we have the token itself inflating 1% every single day. So now to understand when this is going to become deflationary, we have to understand that this is the column that is being burnt on a daily basis based on the LP, and this column F is the inflation of 1% on a daily basis. So if we just scroll down to, let's say, day 60, we would be creating about 425,000 tokens on a daily basis for that day. And we can see that the liquidity, again, dependent on my calculations and assumptions, would only be burning 40,000 tokens. So with that, we can see that the protocol would still inflate because the liquidity burns would not be enough to compensate for the amount of tokens being printed. So now we can continue this for a very long time and try and figure out with my assumptions, when is this protocol going to become deflationary? So when is the LP going to make its mark on the actual total supply of OPT2 tokens? So as we can see, day 122, we are still inflating. If we take a look at the circulating supply here, we are still inflating. So let's continue down here. And again, this is an assumption I made that the LP would be increasing by 2.5% on a daily basis. Here we are still inflating. Let's continue down here. Let's go all the way here. And here we actually start decreasing. So you can see the circulating supply is actually decreasing, which means that the LP is now big enough to compensate for the inflation happening. So as you remember, column B is the amount of tokens burned due to the LP, and this column F is the amount created by the inflation. And we can now see that the burn would be more than the inflation. But again, this means that there would be about 570 million tokens in the LP. Kind of makes no sense, but again, it all is just an assumption at this point. Now, to conclude this analysis, we can see that on day 281, the circulating supply would actually be negative, which makes no sense because they would obviously stop the burn before that. But this just goes to show how many tokens we need to have in the liquidity pool for the burn to actually have an impact and to mitigate the inflation that's happening on a daily basis. Now, this is with the current mechanism. and me assuming that the LP is growing by 2.5% on a daily basis. That is obviously not the case. It's not what's happening right now, and who knows what's going to happen in the future. But all of this, all I'm trying to say here is that the inflation is still a current problem. The protocol is still inflating. It's going to take a long time for it to become deflationary with the current mechanism in place. If they do anything else, then maybe it changes. But all of that to say is, hopefully you guys are taking profits along the way. Do not let the inflation come and literally ruin this for you guys. Take profits along the way, and who knows, just keep up to date with this protocol, and we're gonna see where it ends up in the future. So I hope you guys enjoyed this in-depth video. I know there's a lot of calculations, a lot of math behind this. I kind of wanted to dive deeper and give you guys a potential scenario that could potentially happen to Optimus. And I just wanted to put things in perspective because a lot of people are a bit confused as to how the burns work. So I hope you guys enjoyed. If you did, smash the like button. If you are new to the channel, make sure you subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in my next video. Peace.